Hmm. What's up, guys? So, why? I'm not into much history, right? But taking advantage of AI, I've been, listening to a few videos, speeches to be exactly specific, of speeches, of Hitler, right? When he was, whatever he was, you know, at that time in Germany, World War I, why he started it. And I don't know, I've learned through life that is there's always something hitting when people want to make you hate on someone or somebody, right? It is interesting that I've read a lot of books about strategy and war, right? Big, famous, proclaimed authors, and seldom, they have, a few writers have mentioned Hitler as a exceptional strategist, right? And the way he would do things, it was like mind blowing. Like how he came up, right? I'm an Indian. What's up? So yep. I feel talking about why the media, society wants to brainwash people to hate someone, right? And I don't know. Thanks to technology, a lot of documents, a lot of speeches that were made in a different language can be now translated because thanks to AI. Not that I'm believing everything that AI is saying, but it gives you a little guidance of what's really going on. And I don't know, I've been interested in this man, and it's like, how can you study this guy, right? He's already dead. History, it's lying, obviously, right? But something very interesting. I'm Filipino. What's up? How you doing? So something interesting that I was here and googling, right? It says that Hitler believed in a global conspiracy that Jewish people were seeking to control the world, right? Isn't that kind of relevant? You don't even need to know about history, right? A lot of people have been talking about this, and I just got interested in making my own research. And it's been years, right? Hitler, just is kind of like, it's just the biggest sin that God didn't wrote in the Bible. Mention Hitler, right? It's just so absurd, man. Like something, this guy has something, all right? What's up, based? All right. So tonight I'm gonna talk why we have to be careful with history, and why is it so easy to believe something that we've been told to hate, right? It's just crazy. I just crazy. I it's just like this guy. I'm not justifying what he did, but how he came up is mind blowing. I don't think nobody in history has demonstrated from the ashes, you know, like a phoenix to the top. Just like everybody, there's a day that you will die. But the thing that to this day it's so relevant, about him. People are making songs, and he's just like, you mention him and people are ready to kill you, people are ready to fight, right? Even if you're not a Jew, right? I've seen you just mentioned Hitler and everybody just like has an awkward moment about like what the hell is he talking about, right? It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And I'm one of those guys that I've been reading a little bit of history, try to, connect the dots about this guy. He's not just gonna go kill Jews for some reason, right? He's not just gonna go kill hundreds or thousands or millions like they say. That I don't believe. Millions, I don't fucking believe all that. But whatever number he did, right? I just don't believe that just out of a sudden somebody's just gonna, have that agenda. And it's so crazy, right? Because I was looking through YouTube, who owns YouTube, right? YouTube, pornography industries, most of them, OnlyFans, Hollywood. And they're all Jewish people, though, right? The courts, the federal courts, who can say to me that I'm an ex-convict? I did time, so I can know that the courts are set up like Jewish, you know, by the Jewish system, right? You have the fucking judge in black. So, well, going through, right? So I do believe that this guy discovered something that it was true, right? What he did, people might disagree, but at that time, that was his best option, whatever, his decision. But I do believe that he knew and he sensed that these people wanted to control the world, because to this day, it's the proof of that. It's the proof, right? And I've started religion, even if people say, okay, but you can't blame all the Jews for this. I'm not blaming nobody. What I'm saying that as a Jew, because I read the Bible, the Torah, as a Jew being an owner of pornography, it doesn't fucking make sense. It doesn't make sense. Even like if you don't own the whole pornography industry, right? Just by having stocks or fucking shares or rubbing elbows with people who own pornography, it's just like, it's a no-no. So automatically we can sense that something's wrong right there, right? Something's wrong. I'm not German, obviously, but I believe that people are so weak in character, so damn weak, right? Fear, drives them, right? That this man taught us how to think for ourselves. There's nobody in history who has no raw, right? Razor sharp observation like Hitler did. Going through all how he was homeless in the streets. He just made it from nothing to power, right? And it's crazy because he was the only one noticing, and how he had that conviction, right? It's not persuading nobody. You convince people because you have truth, right? It's not about just trying to sell a dream or just to be a tyrant, right? Let's just go kill people. And that's why they've been telling us, right, with this guy, that Hitler was the worst person in history ever to be, right? I disagree. I disagree that we can learn from this man to how to expose the enemy, right? I disagree. I think he was a very sharp guy, and people don't want him. People don't want the true history about what really he intended to do, right? And I think that's crazy, right? I think that's crazy because Jewish people are very, very smart, right? Very smart. I did time with them. People think that Jewish people don't go to prison. They do. There's a lot of people doing time. Jewish people. One of the best lawyers, right? And these people are just so silent, right? They carry themselves very, very strange, very weird, right? And I know they hold kind of like a secret. They hold a belief system that nobody knows exactly, right? Unless you're in that circle. But going back to this character Hitler, I thought I was just gonna like talk about him. What's up? And I think it's refreshing, so refreshing getting to read, listen to his speeches, to his voice, right? And it's just like he just, German was a shit show, man. How he brought it up, that's just the crazy thing, right? And I think we're living in a lie. I think we're living in times where the truth is coming out little by little, but not enough yet, right? Not enough to overthrow the government, right? And there's something going on really, really hard. And this war with Iran and Israel and United States of America is just a distraction about what really was happening. But not at the same time, not a distraction, but a distraction. Because there's a lot of things going on simultaneously. And it's just so crazy right here. It's just like he believed that Jewish people wanted to control the world, influence the world in a way that no other race can and could, right? But then we go to the Bible. The Bible promised them that they would be the chosen people, right? But who is this God? You know, obviously, he's not the God of everybody, right? But frankly, and being honest, this God had power, right? To make these people, right? To make these people so influenced, big time influencers in the world, in everything, from music, from media, laws, everything. It's just so fucking crazy. It's just so crazy, right? Okay, right? Yeah, I know I went from dating, mating, woman, hoes, and boats to Hitler. Well, that's how life is, right? One thing leads to another. It's just so crazy, so crazy. But what it's crazier, it's that the United States of America brought other scientists, German scientists. There's something in their DNA that they're just the most spectacular scientists in the world. You know, it's just Germans, right? So even though no German people, Hitler's did all that, but they still brought all their scientists back here, right? I don't think there's no scientists compared to German scientists. It's so crazy, right? Do I believe 6 million people died? I don't. Can I prove it? I don't. Can they prove it was 6 million? They don't either. Yeah. But yeah, it's so crazy, man. It's so crazy. This is like in a bigger scale. In a lower scale, it's that when somebody tells you, you know, at work, at school, wherever you are, at church, like when they dislike a person, automatically, you know, everybody, they don't have proof, they don't have evidence, and how weak the mind is that you just get, you know, switched. You know, they switched you. You know, they just like magic. They make you think horrible things about a person that you don't even know, right? This is very bizarre. This is fucking interesting, right? Very interesting. I do want change. I embrace it. But change is gonna come with suffering, pain. Of course, it always does. Right? For the better good. I don't know for the better good, but there's time that you need to cut that everything off. Right? Once the people got corrupted, they need to go. We need to cut them off, big time. Whoever they are, they need to go. Corruption is not a choice. I think corruption is just inevitable. When people are in power, it's just inevitable. It's not a choice. It's just like it's a cycle. We need to be ready to detect corruption and eventually do something about it, right? It's not about protesting with a fucking Sharpie or a cardboard screaming and yelling like a weak motherfucker. Not that, I tell you that. Right? Damn, it's just mind blowing. These motherfuckers own OnlyFans, pornography, the media. Like, man, these motherfuckers. That's the God of the Bible? Well, for the Old Testament. Yeah. Because the God of the Old Testament is for slaves. The God of the Old Testament is the masters of the slaves. That's what it is. That's how I divide. That's how I divide the Bible. The Old Testament it's the scripture of masters, slave masters, right? And the New Testament, that's the scripture of the slaves, right? Basically, how you're gonna end up having slaves. That's what it is. Why they tell you, oh, Old Testament, don't pay attention to that. But that's how they live, literally, behind the curtains, right? Not only Jewish people, but other people who rub elbows with them, with each other, right? The New Testament was created and assigned to certain religions to be controlled. We all know that, right? But the crazy part of that, I don't know why we as humans, we defend a lie. We don't defend a truth, like we defend a lie. It's so crazy. I don't know how to explain it, how to put it in words, how to write it down. It's just so crazy how somebody's so quick to defend a lie faster than to defend a truth, right? It's just, I don't know, it's human brain. I don't, it's interesting, right? How we believe things so quickly when it's, you know, and we know it. We know when it's a lie, right? Because everything based on fear is a lie. The New Testament is nothing based on fear. Everything based on fear. Everything. Faith is poison. Faith, it's poison, really poison. It poisons your body, your mind, everything. And the crazy part, they preach that that's the most brave and courageous message of all time. How can that be courageous when they promise you that if you don't behave, you're going to go to hell? But if you behave, you go to heaven. It doesn't. It's not, it doesn't make sense. It's pathetic. Ridiculous, bro. Hilarious to believe that, right? Yeah, I do believe that Hitler was a great man, but not so great as a, how do you call it? As a leader, right? He came from the ashes, from the streets, right? So crazy. So crazy. To this day, he's so relevant. Just mind blowing. Mind blowing. That's not conspiracy theory. That he knew Jewish people wanted to fucking control the world or influence the world. He didn't lie about that one. It's so fucking crazy. He didn't lie about that one. Not at all. Not at all. The reason I'm saying this is because on World War One and World War Two, a lot of Germans they requested asylum, right, to a lot of countries. Mexico was one of them, actually. You go to Mexico, you have a lot of German people in the part of North Mexico. You have a lot of people with blue eyes, green eyes, blonde hair, you know. And when you go there, right, there's no crime in their communities. They're just like very, very connected to nature, right? That was mind blowing for me. Very connected to nature, and they just like do a lot of stuff, just like other people too. But it's just like saying like German people automatically makes you think, you know, Hitler. But there's something with that race that is kind of like they have they're gifted, you know, in how to build things, you know. Like I said, scientist, right? So crazy, so crazy. But Jewish people, they're intelligent too, big time. Big time. One of my, I remember I put a motion when I was doing Fed time, and it was a Jew who did it, right? And but they're very secretive, right? They don't want to talk about their God. They don't. They don't really want to talk about that. They keep to themselves, and it's just like this is when I noticed that it's a trick. It's not. They don't worship a God. They. It's not Satan either. You know. It's just like it made me think that is it really true we're all ruled by a planet? Saturn. That's what it looks like, right? Black and white. Is it really the color, the tones? You know, these planets have influence with us, with what you wear. It makes me think about that. The power of uniform. All right, black and white. Power uniform. There has to be a specific color and a sign, a symbol, actually. Symbol, right? I think the president Donald Trump, he has some Germany, and they have compared him to Hitler. It's amazing. They have compared him to Hitler, right? And he's still human. Well, people think that they have a clone. Every politician have his twin. I don't know how truthful that is, but I think Donald Trump has a lot of stuff on his fucking back. So sometimes he's like, how am I gonna explain this to the world? And sometimes he does things just we don't know what's the outcome, why he does it. But I still don't believe he's an evil man. I can't. I tried so hard to believe he's an evil man. I can't. I can't believe he's an evil man. Germany. Yeah. So, knowing that the villains, the bad guys, they always teaches us the truth. Actually, you know, the truth doesn't come from friends. They never do. It never does. The truth comes from enemies. Sometimes we disagree how they do things, right? And we disagree how they behave, but that doesn't take, right? That doesn't take in context that they're fighting for a truth, though. That's the thing. This is when we get lost, all right? He started all this, he killed all these people, but if you can just not get emotional and divide, right? That line, that boundary. Okay, why did he started all that? And this is what we have to focus, right? And you don't have to be a politician. He wanted the best for his country, right? He knew that this central banking from other people who were not from that country was going to end up very bad for its people. How can that be bad? It's just like me having my house and allowing another man come and influence my kids and my wife or my girlfriend or whatever, and just like me being cool, right? If I tell them they have to brush their teeth, there's somebody gonna come and say, "Well, you don't have to brush your teeth every day," and me being cool with that. That's how I see it. That's how I see it. He said, "Why are these people owning banks? Why do they want to transform this currency?" Like, yeah, he saw everything. He saw everything. Honestly, he saw everything. The outcome was not a good one, right? People got people died. But I've learned in life, no matter how much we hate the villain, no matter how much we hate an evil person, they always have a truth. They don't do it just because they're crazy. They don't do it because they're just bored, right? They come with a message that shakes everybody. Everybody. It's inevitable not to get the goosebumps when they speak, right? It's not justifying everything they do, but if you take the truth, right, the raw truth of what they're doing, of what they want to do, right, the results that they want to achieve, that's what matters, right? But it's tricky, right? Because everybody gets emotional, everybody gets brainwashed. It's easy to take things out of context, right? This is what I learned. I share this with my friends, my brothers, my sons. That just don't let nobody come and poison your mind and tells you that these people are bad, these people are evil. Don't be that weak motherfucker that you're gonna believe everything they tell you. Mm-mm. Verify it, test it. Mm-hmm. I think this is thinking for yourself. It's the biggest skill that we can possess, right? And I think it's a skill that we never master. Yeah, I don't. I'm not saying that we're weak, but just we never master to think for ourselves because it's not easy, right? It's not easy. When you have threats, they will put you in prison. When you're being threatened, that they're gonna take your life, your family, right? So that's why people believe in what they believe, because they want to be comfortable. But change never happens thinking like that. Never. Hmm. Getting emotional and all that. Just crazy. People who are not Jewish, they just get so sentimental and personal. Hitler was evil. Hitler, like man, that's crazy. That just drags me to believe most of what he says when I'm listening to the speeches with AI, because most of his speeches were in German. Actually, all of them, right? It's just crazy. Hmm. People who are not Jewish, they just hate him so much, right? That's so crazy. That's your answer right there. Hmm. Sometimes the truth comes backwards. We all hear it, you know. The enemy is always our best teachers. Yeah. It's always been like that. Enemies brings the best out of us. They bring the truth that we've been denying for years, centuries. And we always have a label: savage, a barbarian, just like the Romans and the Greeks when they got destroyed by the barbarians, the instruments of nature. Mm. They said barbarians. What's the definition of the neo barbarians? Whatever, neo, however you pronounce it, right? Savages. They speak another language. Of course, they have their own language. Language determines behavior, right? And laws enhances that. You go to a town, to a city, you speak a language, but then if you don't know the laws, you're gonna bump heads. You're gonna hit a wall, right? That's why a lot of laws are written in Latin, this Roman language. Why is it that? If we live in a fucking country that speaks English, right? But certain laws are written in Latin. I don't get it. Well, I do get it. Yeah. They criticize the new barbarian. If you go with nature, right? And when I say nature, I mean true nature. Not this soft garbage about fucking lighting a candle in your backyard. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about nature, right? Dying shouldn't be something alarming, just like being born and dying is just part of the same circle. Yeah. I love these times. I love these times, right? There's a lot of prophecies, right? World War III, all these things, Ragnarok. You know, the gods and the goddesses are going to come. The Odin Brotherhood is going to be revealed. The few in the right places will be better than large amounts of masses being asleep. The Odin Brotherhood is looking for wolves, not sheep mentality. I think that's very interesting, actually. It's called the Way of the Odin Brotherhood, and it has nothing to do with Nazis or races. Not. Actually, it's very interesting. It has to do with the gods of the North, right? And I found this book by accident when I was doing time, right? And when I read it, I really got hooked because I've never read a book so fucking manly and normal and natural, right? This is excellent. They said if we allow the people from the desert, right? These people who control all the resources from the world, we're not gonna have no country. And this is why there's a prophecy that these people one day are gonna come out, right? And not all of them have blue eyes or green eyes, right? A lot of them do sometimes. I think it's very interesting, right? They say that the gods of the desert, yeah, that includes Israel, Middle East. There's going to come a time where these forces from the desert are going to be vanished, right? By this prophecy, right? And these people claim that they're not here to possess what they possess, right? The gems, the gold, the mines, the resource oil. No, they say they don't. They master themselves, right? There's no hierarchies. Right? Everybody's captain of their own boat. I thought that was fucking sexy as fuck. No homo shit, but I thought that shit is dope. Right? There's no hierarchies in the Odin Brotherhood. Everybody's captain of their own fucking boat, right? Different from fucking religion, right? When you go, there's hierarchies, right? Who's on top of each other. You have to do this so you can claim that robe or that fucking bowl or tag or sit the chair. It's just fucking dirty stuff, man. And these people, I thought they were fucking fantastic people. Still believe in dreams. Still believe in fire, right? They think that well, they don't think, they believe that time is circular, not linear, right? And they have their own scientists, but so people claim that these people have been here for 600 years and nobody knows them. They've been having interviews with them and nobody knows them. They're like anonymous and they show up out of nowhere, right? And I think that's dope. Not scary, but that's very intimidated. They claim that they're here, spread everywhere, and there's gonna be time when they're gonna decide when they're gonna overthrow all the corruption out. I'm like, damn. Okay, that's crazy. Israel, okay, yeah. I'm not against Israel. I'm just against corruption, right? That's the difference with me, you know. I'm not against any country or any race, but corruption is colorless, right? Corruption doesn't have a color. It can be all colors, all races, right? I believe that corruption, it's the only problem, the only political issue and challenge that politicians have. And when they take it as soft and lightly, like a feather, I think they're more corrupted than the corruption itself. And that's why I believe in these people that this prophecy is based on truthful events and truthful, knowledge, right? Because I've seen corruption, man. I did time in prison. I've seen corruption here and there, in a lot of countries, and it's not cool at all. Not cool. People think the worst thing is violence. It's not. Violence is a result of corruption most of the time. You know? Corruption is like water, right? It's clear, but the poison, it's there. The poison in itself is clear, right? Just like water bottle. But the poison that they have put in there, it's colorless. You can't see it, you can't smell it. And you go and drink it, and boom, you become one of them too. Because you don't see anything, right? It's colorless, flavorless. You can't taste it, you can't smell it, right? That's corruption. Corruption is like water. You can't see it. You get wet, you get wet. That's why it's so dangerous. People focus on other things, violence and racism and fucking other stuff. Corruption, it's the main problem of all the problems. And everything starts like little as something, you know, like law enforcement. I see that when I was locked up in prison. A lot of times inmates are wrong. 9 out of 10 inmates are wrong. I have to admit it. They're dummies, right? That's truthful. But what about that person, right? Who's making a point, and he needs to have a cold head and prove it, writing motions and writing legally, right? And a lot of times I see a lot of law enforcement who represent the system. They're not the system. They just represent and work for the system. They get a paycheck. Yeah? Correction officers, all of them, right? Law enforcement, cops, anything. So the thing is, when one of their buddies is doing something and they don't report it, that's the most obvious corruption of all, right? But they cover themselves, right? And that's not good. That's why it's almost impossible to detect corruption. And I tell you something, you will detect corruption, but you will need the help of an ex-convict. You will need the help of an ex-convict who has been in the pool of corruption, but for some magical reason, right, he decided that that's not the life that he wants to live, right? 100%, okay? And this is why it comes to me easy and to a few people more that I met down the road, right? That's why normal people cannot detect corruption. Politicians who just got out of college, who got out of some little, job for the city or the government, they come into politics, they can't detect corruption. They don't know what's corruption. Right? They think corruption is running a red light or killing somebody. Right? They think that's corrupt. Oh, he was corrupt, he was horrible. That's not corruption. That's not corruption at all. Corruption is written in the law, right? That prosecutors and judges and attorneys, the triangle, that's the triangle right there. That's why the triangle is so powerful. And you see it with the Jewish, the triangle upside down. You have 6 points, right? The triangle's always the symbol of power, right? And it's not bad or good. It's just a symbol of power. It's neutral. You have the judge, the prosecutor, and the attorney. Sometimes you think they're working to your favor. They're not supposed to work to your favor. They're supposed to work towards the law that is already written down from hundreds of years ago, right? Can you imagine that? That law was written 2, 3, 4, 500 years ago, right? And every time they just have to, what are they going to do? Interpretation, right? Interpretation is not truth. Interpretation is not true. It sounds like the truth, but it's not. So what does that say? What is that? That's corruption. That's what corruption is. It's the master of all times. Corruption is just a motherfucker. Corruption, like I said. Why people can't fight corruption? Because they don't see it. You can't blame them. They don't see it. They don't see it. That's why I believe that this amazing book opened my eyes more, and I thought like I was alone. Like, man, I'm the only one who thinks like this, that we're living in moments of corruption. It's beautiful times, though. Don't get me wrong. I love the system. It provides you with everything. But the corruption aspect, right? The corruption aspect. When they start covering their own people, the law enforcement, this is when it starts being corrupted. And if that's not the reason, and the only reason to act upon something, then everything's a hoax. Everything's just a lie. Right? Yeah. And it's not only my opinion. There's a lot of more people who know this to be true. Yeah. Corruption, it's king. Corruption, it's laid its roots already. Right? So there's no way you're just gonna cut it off just like that. It's already, it got big so strong, right? So what will be the answer, right? To face corruption, right? Going to the streets with a Sharpie, Black Lives Matter, fuck ICE. That's not even a superficial way. That's not. Corruption is when you know your partner, I don't care if you're law enforcement, anything. Corruption is when you know that one of your partners is doing something and you don't do nothing about it. That's corruption. At 100% of fullest capacity. It cannot get more corrupted than that. People think corruption is something huge, something just big and horrible. Nah, hell no. Corruption is just like a cop turning a fucking red light into green just because he wants to go and eat something with his buddy. That's corruption right there. That is corruption right there. And I know this by fact. I had a lot of homies in time who were in the government. Tell me a lot of things. Right? That's corruption right there. People thinking, no, that's corruption. If you stand, right, for the government and you're standing and representing the government, you can't do that. Can't do that shit. You can't turn the sirens just because you want to fucking go home early so everybody can go on the side. That's corruption right there. People think, it's funny. It's not. That's corruption right there. That's why it's hard to see corruption, because they already let go the real corruption. And corruption is not something big. Corruption is a seed. Something small like a seed. Corruption is you're confessing everything to your attorney, right? And then your attorney goes and talks with the prosecutor, right? And guess what? They leak something, but in another language, right? Because they study the law. They know how to send a message, not how I said it, but with other words, but with the same intention, right? Different words, same message. And this is when they get you. That's corruption, right? But lawyers make an oath, right? That everything is confidential. Confidential, my boss. That's corruption, right? So if Donald Trump or president or anybody's fighting corruption, you literally have to overthrow the whole government. That's what Abraham Lincoln said. He said in the Constitution. He said it. And that's it. That's what it is. That's how you take the tree of corruption. You overthrow it. Everything. That's how you do it. That's why these prophecies are very refreshing. Very refreshing, honestly. Very refreshing. How many times have you seen BBLs as law enforcement? You think that's cool to see fucking female police with fucking fake boobs and fake lips? You know? People don't see that as corruption. They see it as a free of my own body and all that fucking garbage. Right? Most people don't see it as corruption. Right? Most people don't see that as corruption. She has her own body and her own rights. Corruption. At its fullest capacity. This cannot get more corrupted than that. Law enforcement with BBLs. Law enforcement with fake boobs, fake lips. There you go. That's corruption. That's straight, perfect example, definition of corruption. People don't see that. That's why they cannot see corruption. Because they think corruption, it's green, when corruption doesn't have a color. That's how bad it is. And that's why these people made these prophecies, right? Later or soon, right? They will come, not because they like bloodshed, right? It's not that. That's why I believe a lot of people, what they do, it's because you're not seeing the corruption. You're not. You cannot explain corruption. Either you're pointed at it, and if you don't get it, then you don't get it. That's why corruption, it's the most difficult thing to understand. You can understand almost everything, including women. And it's the most hardest shit to do, because you can never understand a woman, right? But to understand corruption, nope, it's not happening. Once people try to explain yourself, why is this corrupted? They're setting you up a trap. That's a trap right there. Once you start explaining corruption, that's a trap for you. Because now they're going to accuse you anti-Semitic, right? Racist. They're going to put hate crime on you. They're going to put all the labels that they have, right? And then they're going to invent, right? While they're figuring a case for you. That's corruption. When you start explaining everything, you're already setting up for your own failure. That's why when people don't see corruption, the best thing is to do, keep silent. It's not for him to see it, keep going, right? That's what I've learned in my incarceration. I saw so much corruption, right? People getting extradited from other countries, former politicians, they will share the horrible things that they will do, and it's just like you don't even know how is this keep going. That's what it is, right? That's why there comes a time where countries fall, right? And they don't fall because of God. That's the first one. I knew that one. They don't fall because of God. No, because God is corrupted. No, God is corrupted. It is. He's corrupted. The God of the Old Testament is corrupted. He created slaves. That's why he said, all men is going to eat from the bread of the sweat of his forehead. Fuck you, motherfucker. What the fuck that means? While motherfuckers own fucking mines and fucking in Africa, all the resources, and slaves are fucking working, getting paid by hour. Yeah, that's corruption too. I knew that every family who worships a God is corrupted. It's corrupted. A God should not be worshipped. If me and God are not equal, right? I'm not above you. He's not under me. We're equal. We're fucking friends, right? We can fucking talk to each other like we fucking equal, right? We deserve each other. No, that's a god, right? Any fucking god that wants my worship is fucking corrupted. Any guy who wants to be worshipped is corrupted, right? That's why this prophecy, I think it was very alarming in a way and very fucking, man, refreshing. You see, you say the gods are not to be worshipped, right? You talk to them normal, right? And when I imagine these things, like, of course, there's no fear, right? But when you worship something, when you see something above you, over you, of course, automatically, by default, you're gonna fear him, right? And automatically, it's corrupted. It's just, it's fucking, it's not good. Set to failure, to control you, enslave you, period. Any religion who tells you to worship something, corrupted. Corrupted. I know that's true. And they tell you here in the prophecy, they tell you that the road of the hero, the real hero, right? Not the one who fucking saves dogs and cats out of the fucking road. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. Not that. I do believe in animals though. I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to save a kitten, right, from the road, a dog. But that's not a fucking hero, you know? It's not a fucking hero, right? The hero is a lonely road, you know? They tell you, they're like not lying, like, you know? But, you know, the rewards come after the battles, you know? That's for sure. So, yeah, guys, I wanted just to talk about this. Hating someone when you don't even fucking know him, right? Why would I hate Hitler? I never fucking talked to him, right? But this is how people are. They live in denial. They're stupid and ignorant, right? Somebody tells you, man, he did this and this and this and this. Now everybody hates him. Huh? That's why. But is that an excuse to give up? Of course not. Of course not. Good thing there's prophecies, right? Can't wait for that. What's up? Brother, you can't listen me. It's true, bro. It's true, right? See, like Russia, right? Everybody says that Russia invaded. Well, he did invade. Ukraine? But we don't know the real reason, guys. We don't fucking know the real reason, right? We can assume that what Ukraine wanted to fucking be part of the UN, huh? You think Russia wants that as neighbors? It's like with Mexico, right? When I was doing time, you know, you have the paisas, right? It's a fucking inner gang over there. And Cinco de Mayo, they're all fucking happy, celebrating the independence of Mexico or some bullshit from France, right? The French invaded Napoleon 2 or 3, whatever, and they think that really Mexico won that fucking battle or that war, right? They didn't fucking know the Freemasons established all this. Freemasons were the ones who were influencing all the world, right? To lay out all the blueprint so they can take over and control or influence politicians, right? And at that time, Benito Juarez was the fucking president, right? And he was a Freemason. So this is how they work. But Freemasons is just different, right? They're different names. But it's just like people influence other countries. Because you think United States of America wanted fucking France as a neighbor or Mexico? Of course Mexico. He don't want a superpower next to fucking as a neighbor? Of course not. You think Mexico's just like, oh, it's not my war. Oh, it's not my war, Mexico. Yeah, let them fucking any country invade Mexico. Fuck no. No, it's your neighbor. You're not gonna let fucking superpower invade and you just do, I don't care. No, because you will have them as a neighbor. And then you're gonna have problems too. Of course, they influence Mexico to fucking win that war. Cinco de Mayo. But they don't get it, and it's okay. It's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. But yeah, you think United States of America, Uncle Sam, was gonna fucking want Emmanuel, you know, as a neighbor? Of course not. They want a fucking world third country, right? So they can fucking do their things and don't worry about getting invaded. But yeah, going for that. We shouldn't fucking we shouldn't believe everything they say, you know. And that's not living in denial. I learned that. I learned that. Just because you don't believe everything, that doesn't mean you're ignorant or live in denial. You know, reverse psychology is a motherfucker too. They're always, you know. This is what I'm very obsessed with human nature, man. They're always trying to convince you about something all the time, all the time. They want to follow their ideas, right, and strip you out of your own instinct. Okay, and that's the worst thing. That's why they criticize barbarians, because a true barbarian, what they call savage, right, live by nature laws. They call them uncivilized, because they're not corrupted, right? And yeah, they act aggressive and violent, but that's just part of the nature, right? Somebody does something to your family, automatically what pops in your mind, right? To kill that person or kill that threat, right? So violence in itself is not corrupted. It's not corruption. You know? It's not. That's what these people, they're very good at what they do. You know, they try to say that violence is corruption and all that. And it's not. I know some of them are faking. They know. And I really genuinely believe that a lot of them, they just can't see. They don't know. And that's okay. Just like this prophecy. Most of them, they don't know us. But eventually, they will know us. That's scary shit. That's a scary statement right there. When I was reading, I'm like, damn. Like, who is this brotherhood? No? Who is this fucking, the gods of the north? Who the fuck? They're dead, right? They got froze. They're frozen. Odin, one eye. Yeah. No, this is something else. I can feel it on my veins. This is just something else. Something else. I really love that though. Few people, probably none, know us. But you better believe that most of them, when the time comes, they will know us. Wow, that's another level, in my view. Yeah. I don't like violence. In my time incarcerated, I saw a lot of bad things that humans shouldn't see, right? But to tell you the truth, a lot of times it was necessary. It was necessary because that's just like, that's the nature of human nature. You know, it's just embedded in a lot of people, right? To fight for their rights, to fight for what is true for them, to fight corruption. But then you fight corruption, like a lot of people in history, they fight corruption. But then, how do you prove that you fought corruption? You can't. You will never fucking explain that you fought corruption. Never. You have to take that to the grave. You knew what you were fighting for. Other people don't. Not even your family. Not even your loved ones. So I think this is what makes this book unique. That tells you that the real heroes are not lonely. They will never be. They're fucking attractive as fuck. How can you be lonely, right? You're fit. You speak your mind. But you're sharp. You know? You're witty. You have other good qualities. But when you go down, when it's time to go down, you go down, right? But it tells you that it's a lonely road. It's not that you're lonely, but it's a lonely road because you're alone. Of course. You know? Who can hold all that knowledge, right? Who can hold all that knowledge? when the prophecy comes and it becomes fucking real. Who can hold the gravity, of that extremely, capsule of knowledge and information that is just mind blowing, life changing. But yeah, it's a prophecy. It hasn't happened, but it's interesting. It's based on a clean heart and justifiable intentions, right? Honestly, right? I don't think the resources of this world should be for firm people. I don't believe that. I don't believe that a few people should hold this fucking planet hostile. I don't believe that a promise of this motherfucking God, jealous and angry God, that his days counted. His days are counted too. I don't believe that this promise is for a few people. I disagree that the natural resources are only for the few people, right? But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And for now, keep enjoying life. Keep thinking for yourself, right? Don't let nobody put words on your head. Because a lot of people are trained for that. A lot of people are to train you, right? To put words on your head that you never thought that you said because you never said it in the first place. But these people are trained to do that, right? They train to set you up with your own words, right? Sometimes it's better not to explain yourself. If you speak your mind, you speak your mind, period. Who gets it, gets it. Who doesn't, too bad, right? Once you start explaining yourself, it's a trap. Remember, guys, don't explain yourself. It's a trap. You can apply this in anything, in everything. Once you start explaining yourself, the whys, it's a trap. It's a fucking trap, right? Don't explain yourself. Say what you need to say or do what you need to do. Explanations are irrelevant. They're corrupted. Explanations will set you up, right? Good night, guys.